All right, everyone, welcome back into another live edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Network, presented by our wonderful friends over at Prize Picks and Game Time. It is Brian Hines, as always, with Alex Barth. We're both battling a little sore throat, loss of voice, so excuse us if our voices cut in or out, or we have some, throat clears throughout this show. But the Patriots are back from bye. Kind of won the bye thanks to Mac Jones and the Jaguars getting a win there and shooting the Patriots up in the draft order. So a good week off, rested, got some awesome college football. I'm sure we'll talk about. We'll hand it over to you guys for a Q&A. If you want to start putting your questions in the chat now, anything college football, Patriots related. And we also got some Patriots news today on their day off. It was kind of a busy one. And we can start with kind of the biggest part of the day. They released wide receiver KJ Osborne. It was kind of reported as a mutual decision. We've obviously seen him falling out of favor in that wide receiver room really since like Kendrick Bourne came back in week 5. There was that one weird game in Chicago that, Bourne was benched and KJ Osborne had this big role, but Osborne hasn't really held a role in this offense. They play in younger guys. His name was out there in the trade deadline rumors a lot, but he stayed. Kind of felt like this was bound to happen probably sooner than we all expected it or it was later than we expected it getting released today. But Osborne's out. His spot is filled by Cole Strange. We'll talk about, but first, just initial thoughts, if any, on the KJ Osborne release today.
Yeah, I don't know why this didn't happen sooner. I guess so. I was somebody saying they should move him at the trade deadline for whatever they can get, and we'll see how quickly he signs. He is eligible for waiver, so he could get claimed. It's a 1-year deal, so I could see a team maybe putting in a claim if they know they want him. It's going to cost a little more than signing him to the minimum for the rest of the year. But again, you get him without having to go to free agency. But they should have traded him at the deadline. There were reports they could have gotten something for him. I know people say, well, what could you have gotten? Like literally anything. Literally pick swap, turn a 7th into a 6th. Anything would have made sense. And then after that, Mike Reese had reported that he was going to get traded. Instead, they kept him inactive. So it didn't cost him anything in terms of like he was inactive. They were still getting the kids on the field. They were still playing, at least, some of the kids. Javon Baker's haven't played, but Kayshon Boutte was getting more time. Jalen Poole continues to get more time than he was at first. Things like that. But yeah, I don't know what took him so long, and we'll see, was there any negative impact in the locker room? Just a guy that clearly wasn't happy with this situation. So it makes sense. I'm really surprised it didn't happen sooner.
Yep. Do you think we'll get some Javon Baker this last month? I mean, like, it's tough to say the snaps are open because Osborne wasn't active, but do you think there will be any sort of shift where, Polk's been around that 20, 25 snaps? Do you think we get some Javon Baker in there over these last 4 games?
They've talked about wanting to play the kids. Now, he's the one kid that they seemingly won't play. They don't seem to think he's ready to go out on the field based off what they see in practice. I'd like to see it, but I'm not getting my hopes up.
Definitely. And then, as I mentioned, with that roster spot, Cole Strange activated off the pup. Tomorrow was the deadline, the 21-day deadline to do so. So he's back. He's been working at center kind of in his return. They did say that was because most of his experience was at left guard, as we've seen it through his first couple of years here. But they seem to kind of like him at center. Ben Brown's been playing better, though, the last few weeks. Mike Reese in his Sunday notes kind of pointed to maybe there's a rotation there where, they get both of these guys in. Mayo has said Cole Strange is one of these younger guys they want to see snaps from down the stretch, and center is obviously a new position. So how are you kind of seeing this center rotation this last month? Do you think it could be a rotation? That sounds kind of crazy at that position and protecting Drake May, but they definitely have made it an emphasis that they kind of want to see Cole Strange in there. So how do you see that kind of shaking out here?
I hate the idea of a rotation. It's just not fair to Drake. You're putting way more on his plate that needs to be on there. And look, I think it would be good to evaluate Cole Strange at center. I think that would help, but if that's the cost, no, thank you. I'm sorry. Drake May is a more important player to this organization than Cole Strange. He has 1 year left on his deal, right? 2022, 23. Yeah. Did they pick up a 5th-year option?
They would have to do that this offseason, right? I think.
I thought it's going into the 3rd year. No, you're right. So 1, maybe 2 more years on his contract. Like, no, Drake May's way more important. They should not be, don't do center rotation. That'd be a bad idea. I'd like to say put Cole Strange back at left guard. I still don't think Layden Robinson's an answer there, but that's the one guy they will move heaven and earth. They will break every single rule to get that ball on the field. Like there's just an insistence that Layden Robinson needs to play. So if you don't think Ben Brown's the long-term answer, then yeah, you see what you have in Cole Strange. That makes the most sense. You could have the both of them on the field. And then next year, right? All right. Because I still think David Andrews is going to be back for one more year.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have David Andrews, we have Cole Strange, Michael Onwenu, your interior set. We'll see what we get from Cade Wallace at right tackle. But you could go in really only needing one spot. You go into the offseason only needing one spot. And that's a big spot. It's left tackle, but it's only one spot. So I'd play him at left guard, but they're just stubborn insistence on Layden Robinson playing, I think, starts Cole Strange at center. Now we will see. Does Layden Robinson get benched again? Because if he does, I think you see Cole Strange move out to left guard. Well, they don't have Michael Jordan anymore. I don't know who else they'd put out there, but I think you maybe see Cole Strange go to left guard if Michael Jordan struggles again.
Yeah, the rotation at center would seem like a crazy idea. That position, rotating two guys in there, especially because Ben Brown's kind of turned it around these last few weeks, and he's been, trending in the positive direction. Do you want to take that guy out of that lineup? That would be interesting. Also, along the offensive line, Caden Wallace came back at practice on Monday, so his clock kind of starts. He could maybe even factor into the equation this week. We'll see how he progresses throughout the week. But that would be a big one if you can get him. That right tackle position is kind of open with DeMontre Jacobs up and down. But if you could get him for the last month, Caden Wallace in there at right tackle, and feel good about that, and he has a good month, finishing strong, that's, again, now you go into the offseason maybe being like, okay, we only have to fill left tackle. So that would be a nice bump and boost, make yourself feel good, a little bit better about something else going in if we got, third round pick Caden Wallace playing well. These last 3 or 4 games, we'll see how it ends up, playing out. But if he's ready to go and he plays well, that would be kind of encouraging on the Caden Wallace front there.
Yeah, that's a guy that is important to see. That's a guy that you want to know what you have in him. Because again, if he's not the answer, and I don't know that 4 games is enough time to figure out anything definitive, but you at least want to go in feeling, all right, we don't need to go get a starting right tackle. Maybe you find the Vidarian Lowe equivalent of a right tackle in free agency, and you sign him and you have that guy there as your plan B if it doesn't work out with Wallace. But ideally, you'd like to see Wallace show you something that at least it's all right, we'll get into the off season and we feel good about at least having a primary option at right tackle.
Yeah. And that's his natural position too, which I think is important, right?
No more moving him to left.
If you went into this offseason and say you drafted Caden Wallace in the 3rd round to be your offensive tackle, you'd feel much more confident about that. So now if he gets 3 or 4 good games on tape, you'd feel much better going into next year with him at right tackle, again, his natural position where he played so much at college. So those were kind of the big moves of the day. Again, KJ Osborne out at wide receiver, Cole Strange back on the active roster, Caden Wallace likely soon behind him as he returns to practice. The one other kind of minor move was a practice squad expected addition, and that's John Parker Romo, a kicker. He was just with the Minnesota Vikings. He played 4 games while their rookie Will Ricard was on IR. He went 11 of 12. He had a lawn of 55. First team all XFL guy in 2023. So Joey Sly, he's 27th in the league. He's got a make percentage just under 80. I think it's right around 78.5%. So he hasn't been, he's been up and down. He's had a lot of misses in 1-score games. So, and he's on a 1-year deal. So get another kicker in here, some competition, and we'll see what, Parker Romo can bring and how Joey Sly kind of finishes the year now.
Yeah, a couple of rough weeks for Sly, so it's not surprising. And like you said, Sly's on a 1-year deal. So Parker Romo is the kind of guy you can bring back on a futures contract. And maybe this is just getting ahead of that. And whether it's Romo and Sly or Romo and another veteran, maybe Romo and a rookie, we're doing kickers again in the draft. They need to have a competition again next year. I don't think you can go in with just one guy. So I thought Romo is good in the XFL. I thought he was solid in Minnesota. Not a bad guy to have if you're going to set up a competition. Maybe he gets to kick a game at some point this year. We'll see. But yeah, not a bad guy if you're trying to set up a kicking competition.
Definitely. Yeah, I went back and looked.
It's me, you,
Sly
and
had
Mike Reese back to the hill next summer. I
back to the
think.
hill, baby. That's the best part of camp. And we don't
That
have to
was the best part of camp.
we don't have to be so involved in a quarterback competition next summer
That
too,
too.
which will be nice. So the hill and the camp and the kicking competition in camp will take over as the best part. But
Oh yeah.
Sly, he has 6 misses, and if you take the 68-yarder out, 5 misses, 4 of those have come in 1-score games, and one was the block versus Seattle where they lose by 3. He had a 33-yard miss versus Miami in week 5, and they ended up losing by 5 points, but they were in field goal range at the end. That was the Jalen Polk, heel toe play. He had a lawn miss in Tennessee, which, you go to overtime and then lose. And then he missed a 25-yarder against the Colts last week, which you end up losing the game by 1 point. So you could kind of sit here and say, again, people did this with Chad Ryland last year, say a few kicks cost them 2 or 3 wins here on the schedule. So bringing in another kicker, it kind of makes some sense again, especially with Sly on a 1-year deal. Try to maybe get ahead of some shopping for next summer. But
all I'm saying is, you ready to talk Jonah Dalmas, Brian? You ready to do Jonah Dalmas all spring?
I like the Michigan kicker, Zavada. Is that his name?
He actually, I literally saw, it was the last thing I saw before we got on. He's going back to school.
Is he really?
Yeah.
Ah, damn.
I would assume so. He tweeted like, "Let's win a national championship," and said, "I got one more in me."
All right, relax.
What about Dragon Quiche?
But yeah, he was the
Minnesota's kicker. He's the one that's Milan Lucic's cousin.
He's cousins. Yeah, that was a good one. There's
19 to 26 this year.
Okay, maybe not.
Although most of those misses are from 50 plus, so perfect inside of 40.
Sounds like the opposite, the anti Joey Sly, almost in a way.
Right, that's Bill's kind of kicker right there.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be doing kickers again. Always fun to do kickers, I guess. Although it would be nice also just to have a good kicker. We don't have to
kicker, yeah.
Don't have to worry about this stuff. The Steven Gostkowski days, we missed those days. But that is the Patriots news. Again, kind of a busy day off today. A couple roster moves there. So we will turn it over. Again, if you guys have any questions you would like us to answer, free agency, draft, rest of the season, players on the roster, throw them in the chat. I will start, though, a question to you, Barth. How do you feel we have our initial first ever 12-team college playoff bracket? I can try to pull it up here, but how are you feeling about the first college football bracket? And any thoughts from Championship Saturday? Great day of football. So any thoughts on the bracket and the games on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, the day looked like it was going to be a bust, right? We got 3 blowouts Friday night, and then Arizona State just completely ran Iowa State out of the building. Cam Scadaba was fun. It's another guy we'll talk a lot about for the Patriots. Cam Scadaba, I think, will be a popular name among Patriots fans. As for the bracket, I like it. I think they got most of it right. They got it right in terms of which teams got the buys. Clemson should not have jumped up that high to get a buy. I think they got it right that SMU is in. It is not an invitational. You have to earn your way into this. The big tweak I would have had is I think Notre Dame is too high. I would have dropped Notre Dame below Ohio State and honestly probably below Tennessee as well, maybe to that 10 spot. I do love that we get Notre Dame, Indiana in the first round, like an on-campus game between 2 in-state schools. That's, the first round games are awesome. SMU, Penn State, we'll see. That one could get out of hand. Clemson, Texas is a freaking, that's going to be a ton of fun. Tennessee, Ohio State, that'll up in Columbus. Tennessee's got to go up north, kind of high-flying offense versus more traditional, run it down your throat team. And then Indiana, Notre Dame. So the one thing I'll say, I know a lot of people have complained about with this new format, now that you're seeing it in practice, I guess a lot of people didn't know about you had to win your conference to get the bye. A lot of people were surprised by that. And so they're looking at it like, how does, Arizona State, which wasn't even really ranked in the top 12, how do they get a bye? I do like that you have to win your conference to get the bye, because the bye is valuable. And with this, winning your conference still means something. So I think that that's good to maintain that. what I would do, because I acknowledge people look at this and say, well, Oregon's number 1 seed and they have, arguably the hardest path to the playoff, which I don't think is wrong. But so what I would do, some people have said, well, get rid of the winning your conference things. Just top 4 teams get buys. Then you lose, unless you're one of those way down teams, right? The SC championship wouldn't have meant anything. Both those teams are getting in either way. What they should do is reseed only after the first round. Don't reseed going into the semis. But for instance, so Oregon, instead of facing the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State, I would say Oregon should face the lowest remaining seed. So like if Clemson wins, they get Clemson, and on and on and on. That's the one change I would make. But I think this is a good bracket. I think we're set up for some fun football. So I don't have a ton of problems with it.
Yeah. It'll be interesting what they decide to do with the conference and the buys. Because like you could sit here and say, like, I think the AP poll, like Texas was 3 and was Ohio State or Penn State 4. And you're like,
the AP poll or the final college football playoff poll?
Maybe the college football playoff poll.
Because the AP poll has nothing to do with this.
I know, but like you're saying, like Texas is probably the 3rd best team in the country, and now they don't get to buy because Arizona State. What?
Should it beat Georgia?
Yeah, true. But
win your
I think
that's
just most people's argument. Like, there's most of these teams that aren't on bye are better than Arizona State and Boise State there, so they should get the buys over one of these teams. But it is good. I think like you should be rewarded for something, right, for winning your conference. But I do like the
games have to mean something. The games, it can't just be the best team is on paper.
Yeah, I do like the reseed idea. That would keep it a little more fair,
right,
because like you look like Penn State could just have a theoretical cakewalk if they take care of their business right to the semifinals, going through SMU and then Boise State. So
I feel like if Penn State wins, Boise's a sneaky tough matchup for them.
Genty Nation.
But, yeah, no, I would. That would be my adjustment. I would reseed it.
Were you? I mean, the big argument with the bracket, SMU, Alabama. I get Alabama. If they played 1-on-1, Alabama would probably beat them, and they're the better team talent-wise. But I was in favor of putting SMU in there. A 3-loss Alabama team. They lost to like Vanderbilt. SMU, they get to their conference championship game. They shouldn't get hurt for playing an extra game. And, they came back against Clemson and lost off like a long walk-off field goal. So I was in favor of SMU in there. Were you SMU or did you think I should have done it?
I say this as an Alabama fan. Like, and to your point, well, if SMU played Alabama, they'd win. All right. Or if Alabama played SMU, they'd win. Okay, if I told you back in September Vanderbilt would beat Alabama, you'd be like, no, they wouldn't. What are you talking about? Like, that's not going to happen. So, there's a reason you play the games. All Alabama had to do was beat one of 6-6 Vanderbilt or 6-6 Oklahoma. And this is not, I know people think of Oklahoma as a blue blood. This is not a good Oklahoma team. This is a bad Oklahoma team that I kind of quit at that point in the year, except for that one game. You didn't even have to win both those games. You just had to win one. Like, so I had no problem with it. Again, I think the games have to mean something. The games on the field have to mean something. It can't just be which team's better on paper. Alabama had its chances to prove it belongs, and it didn't, and they lost. And if we're going to just take all the best teams on paper, why even play the season? Just announce the playoff before the season starts.
Jim Nagy just wants to do who has the most NFL players.
Right, exactly. Which, like, that's not what that's what the Senior Bowl
was crazy. For. Yeah, that was, of course, the Senior Bowl guy. But that was a crazy take. So should be a fun playoff. Hopefully Texas goes to Arch Manning. Man, watching Quinn Ewers against Georgia was rough. We saw 3 quarterbacks in that game. I guess Arch played like 2 games, 2 snaps, but we saw 3 quarterbacks, and the best quarterback didn't even play in that Georgia-Texas game, unfortunately. And then Beck got hurt.
The Quinn Ewers, Cade Klubnik rematch of that Texas high school playoff game is pretty cool, though.
Yeah, that's fair. Indiana, Notre Dame, as you said, in state. Hopefully it's like snowing in Notre Dame. That'll be tremendous vibes. Tennessee, Ohio State should be a good one. Yeah, I'm a fan. It's going to be a fun bracket.
Yeah,
lots of draft prospects in there as well, which I'm sure we will talk plenty about as the playoff goes on. But that is your college football bracket.
One more while we're on college football, because we didn't get to it in the open. Bill Belichick stuff. I kind of figured I'd believe it when I see it. Now, I think so. What's been reported today is Bill Belichick has agreed to it, but UNC hasn't. I think that I'm not saying I don't believe the reports. I think the use of the word agree in the initial report is misleading, just because if Bill's agreed and UNC hasn't agreed, then they haven't agreed. Yeah. It just means Bill's willing to take the job, right? It takes both sides. So
he dropped his 400-page Bible on
which
their
is,
desk.
By the way, when does it go from a Bible to a manifesto? Because Bill had a 400-page Bible and Connor Stallions is a 600-page manifesto.
Okay, so probably like page 500, it changes from Bible to manifesto.
I just want to read both. I really want to read both. But
so
I would love to read
400-page Bible, on the chancellor's desk or whatever, and he's like, "Here are my rules. If you want me, let me know." So we'll see if UNC agrees on to it. What do you just think though about Bill in the college game? Like, he had the whole thing on McAfee where he's saying how it's just going to be this pathway to an NFL program, and he's going to set it up where there's basically sounds like there's going to be a GM, and then he is running his coaching staff. So it sounds like it's going to be run like an NFL program, which is kind of how the college game is evolving with NIL and the transfer portal and everything. But it's still a 72, 73-year-old Bill Belichick, recruiting high school kids and dealing with people that are in class and all this. Just, it feels like an interesting setup.
Well, look, I think a lot of these programs right now are being run more professionally. Like Alonzo Highsmith, we talked a lot about, is with the Patriots now, is essentially the GM at Miami for the Hurricanes last year. So it's the right time. I don't think Bill would have done this a few years ago. I think he can make it work, because that's the pitch. What you were talking about with the pipeline is I'm the greatest NFL coach of all time. If you play for me, no other coach is going to get you more ready for the NFL than I am. And players whose main goal is to get to the league, which is a lot of them, like, that's going to resonate. I'm going to go play for Bill for 2 years, 3 years. Now, so he's talked about, there was some talk that like he'd move on after 2 years. He might have to do 3 to make this really work, because the idea would be that's how you're getting that initial recruiting class, is they're going to be with Bill all the way through, and then they, declare earlier or whatever. But, those players, and then I think, teams around the league, you're going to get more interest from those teams around the league. It's like, okay, this guy was coached by Bill. He's ready for it. He knows. Patriots, by the way, just released.
They make those moves.
Keyshawn Banks. Yeah, Keyshawn Banks. So that's how they got. They didn't make the Parker Romo move official, but that's how they got the roster spot. Sorry. Yeah. So anyway, like, that's the recruiting pitch, and the idea of a pro program in college, it's been done before. It's not. I'm sure the way Bill's going to do it is new, but the overall concept of that, it's been done. It's done with mixed results. You look at, I would say the great success of that sort of attempt was Pete Carroll. Now, Bill's not Pete Carroll. They have very different personalities, but Pete Carroll came from the NFL, went to USC, installed a more professional-like program, and had a ton of success out there. You look at the flip side of it, would be a guy like Herm Edwards in Arizona State, which ended very badly. Now, Bill's a lot closer to Pete Carroll than he is to Herm Edwards as a coach. So I think it would go well. It's not totally unheard of. I'm sure the way, again, Bill would do it is different than the way Herm Edwards did it or the way Pete Carroll did it. And the NIL thing is just going to make that part of it. But I think he'd get buy-in from players. If they hired him, he'd get buy-in. The problem is so many of these hires, the way these college programs look at it, it's not like the NFL where you go and you say, all right, we're making this hire with the idea of we're going to win one Super Bowl in the next 5 years. That's the way a lot of these teams look at it. And you just know there's going to be ups and downs and bumps. The colleges want sustainability. They want, because they got to keep their donors engaged. They got to keep their boosters engaged. They got to keep the students engaged. They got to keep, recruits wanting to come, all of that. So you don't really have as much of a short-term outlook. And Bill Belichick's 72 years old. And there's this pipeline plan for Steve. But that to me is kind of what it's going to come down to, is what they think of Steve. Because you want an element of sustainability. You want the program to be relevant after Bill leaves, because Bill's not going to be there for a while. And I think that's what they're kind of weighing. You're going to invest this much money and all that.
Yeah. I think, like, again, I think they were saying like there's 12 or 13 trustees that are now deciding what to do at UNC. So Steve is going to be a big part of that. And just financial funds is also going to be a big part of this. Like, I think UNC's NIL money was like $4 million last year. You're going to have to pay Belichick maybe double or triple that, and then his staff, and then this general manager that's coming in, and then probably up your NIL package to get his players. So
I saw something that said, like, you're talking about quadrupling the spending of the program with Bill, which might be worth it, but that money's got to come from somewhere. And I think that's probably what's going on right now, is they're leaning on boosters to see how much of this money they can actually raise.
Yeah.
Also, probably wouldn't apply to UNC right now if I was applying to colleges, because tuition's about to go way up.
Way up.
I mean, I probably would apply because I get to, Bill Belichick would be coaching my football team, but
it would also, just from a football standpoint, like how diverse, or like how in-depth is he going to get from a scheme standpoint? Like, what can he run with these college kids? Can he develop? Like, we've talked so much about him. Part of the reason he's not here is because he couldn't identify some college talent and identify, those younger players when they got into the league. Like, is he going to be able to identify and develop high school wide receivers now all of a sudden? Like, the football stuff too would be really interesting. So
that's why it would be.
I ultimately wish he would get a job in the NFL, because I think that would still be the most fun, but there are some interesting storylines, I think, to follow if he still ends up at the college level here.
I mean, that's why it'd be fascinating to see who he hires as GM. And we've heard, about Patricia and McDaniels and all these guys following him on the coaching staff. Does he bring a GM with him from the NFL, or does he get somebody that's more well-versed at the college level and with the recruiting stuff to basically run recruiting? I don't think Bill's running recruiting. I think he's going to recruit, but I don't think he's like setting the board. And I don't think he's like, I don't know. I can't expect him to do that. I would think he'd be more of, I'll help you sell the players on coming here and then get me the players. I don't think he's the one coming up with the big picture recruiting strategy. The guy I wonder who's done a very successful job as a recruit, and I don't know if there's a lateral move or not. I wonder if Jedd Fisch would get a call. Jedd Fisch has done a great job at Arizona and now at Washington. And does he want to be a GM? Does he want to coach? Maybe not. But I would think he would look for like a Jedd Fisch kind of person, somebody with that background, that NFL and college background, that has experience, not just recruiting, but recruiting in the NIL era to help lead that.
Yeah, that would be interesting. He could come with Steve. He's also, Bill's always been really close with Brett Bielema, right? And I know he's a head coach.
Yeah, I don't think GM at UNC is probably not a step up from head coach at Illinois, especially the way the team's going right now.
Yeah, but maybe just another tie there down the line or something. So it'll be interesting. Again, seems like Bill's on board by his set of rules. Surprise, surprise. And now we'll have to see if UNC wants to follow there. So we'll keeping tabs on that and seeing what happens with Bill there. So let's turn it over to you guys. There's lots of convo in the chat. Very quickly, before we do that, I'm going to try to talk to you guys about Prize Picks, where you can just pick more or less on at least two players for a shot to win up to 200 times your cash if you run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. Barth and I submit our Patriots lineups every game day, and you can join in and make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. And again, you can win up to 200 times your money now on Prize Picks. And join now, because this holiday season is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. So download Prize Picks today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup on Prize Picks. Run your game. All right. Start off with some current Patriots talk here, Barth. What are you looking for these last 4 games of the regular season?
I kind of already talked about it, but, just playing the kids, what you're getting from those young guys, Caden Wallace, Cole Strange, the receivers, I think that's the most important development, and just some sort of growth, some sort of linear improvement from the coaching staff, the team as a whole, just building towards something, getting some momentum going into 2025. We've talked about Dan Campbell starting 0-10, finishing 3-3, like that kind of thing.
And that falls on the coaching staff too, and Jerod Mayo. You want to see that growth with him and that staff as well. We talked a little bit more in depth about that, I think, in our last crossover with Tayler and Mike last week. So if you want to go back and you can listen to that. But yeah, growth from the young guys, growth from the coaching staff. You want to end on kind of a high note here. But speaking about Mayo, Joe asks, is his job only in trouble if Ben Johnson is interested, or is it in trouble anyway? Any potential other names for the job if Mayo is out? Where are you at with kind of just Jerod's job status right now? And is Ben Johnson someone who would potentially interest you if he, another UNC guy, keeping the theme alive here?
Yeah, there's this whole UNC thing going on right now. Drake May shows up, and now it's the most popular school. Look, if Ben Johnson's interested, I'm interested. I don't think he's going to be interested. If Ben Johnson's interested, yeah, you certainly take a long look at that, especially if he's interested before you've even moved on from the coach. I've talked about this a lot. Like, I do worry that, and there's absolutely a case that Jerod Mayo should not keep his job. There's absolutely a case, just based on the product on the field. There's also just an element of the brand as a whole, and given the nature in which Jerod Mayo was hired, the conviction ownership hired with, they didn't even have a search, the way he was talked about, to give him the roster that they did and then fire him after 1 year, you're going to have a lot of coaches look at that. Like, you're not going to get the prime candidates because they're going to say, well, that, I don't want to be in that same position next year. It's going to take more than 1 year to get this roster back where it needs to be. And I don't want, you only get so many chances at this as a head coach. Do you want to use one on this situation? So if you know a guy like Ben Johnson, I'll throw Mike Vrabel in this too, because I've been asked about him. If you know a guy like Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel is interested, then you take a long, hard look at it. If it's just like, oh, well, Ben Johnson says he wants to coach, so we're going to fire Jerod Mayo and go after him. And then suddenly you find out he's not interested. And, I think you need to have a plan if you move on from Mayo. If Ben Johnson kind of lets you know through back channels that he's interested, then you have a plan, and then that makes some sense. If not, you really risk. We all remember what happened last year with coordinators, right? Where they're down to 5th, 6th, 7th options, and Van Pelt's worked out okay. I would say, like, that one, it may have worked out, but you don't want to be doing that at the head coach level.
Yep. Also, just with Ben Johnson, like, I get the Lions offense is unreal, so fun to watch. Can we just stop crowning him as like a Hall of Fame head coach, please? Like, imagine like everyone just all of a sudden assuming this guy is going to be like an amazing coach. I just, again, the scheme is good, but we've seen a lot of great offensive minds at offensive coordinator not succeed as a head coach. And I don't know, I've never talked to Ben Johnson, met Ben Johnson, been in one of his press conferences, but something about him to me just doesn't give off like those head coach vibes, especially sharing a sideline with like Dan Campbell and even Aaron Glenn, their defensive coordinator. Like, those two guys give off more head coachy vibes to me. So I don't know. Again, his scheme is awesome, even though Detroit, tons of talent. So how would it look somewhere else? That's a big thing, with that offensive line and everything. But just, I've seen way too much Ben Johnson praise, and again, he deserves a ton of it, but just stop crowning him as a surefire, like, Hall of Fame slam dunk head coach. That's just my kind of thing with Ben Johnson right now. But if he is, like, if you are moving on from Mayo, which I don't think is going to happen, and he makes it known that he's interested, sure, that's definitely a path you could explore there, because he probably would be a great fit with Drake May. But another person that someone thinks would be a great fit with Drake May, I'm seeing a lot of Ashton Genty talk in the chat here. He'd be great for Drake May. He's the best prospect in the draft. All the great teams have good running backs. Is that someone who should be on the Patriots radar in this draft, Ashton Genty?
Man, it'd be nice. Sure would be nice. But no. They have too many other needs in premium positions. It's not going to be worth it. It's not. You need impact players at impact positions. The other thing is, like, I don't disagree that they should add a running back. This running back class is so freaking good. You can get a like plus starting caliber player, probably third, maybe even early fourth round. So it's a fun thought, and I'm gonna bug Evan about it for the next 4 months. And he thinks that I really want it. I know it just that they need players at impact positions, and running back is I will knock down the running back don't matter people as much as I can, but objectively, it's not an impact position. Quarterback, receiver, offensive tackle, pass rusher, corner. Those are the impact positions. They need a blue chip player at one of those positions.
Also, just improve the offensive line, and I'm sure Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson will look better. And then, as you said, there's so much depth in this running back class. One of the guys, two of the guys are bound to fall later. Use one of your late round picks. Go get a running back.
Right. Like it doesn't even have to be like later round if they have the free agency that some people hope them to have. Like if you want to talk to me about Marion Hampton, Quinshaw Junkins, Travion Henderson, like I'd even be in on one of those guys. I just think using what's going to end up being a top 10 pick on a running back is not what this team needs right now.
Not feasible. What are your thoughts on Abdul Carter and if the Pats can get T. Higgins in free agency, which Joe Burrow certainly doesn't think T. Higgins is hitting the open market all of a sudden. Should they take Abdul Carter? What are your thoughts on the Penn State pass rusher?
Yeah, first off, I wouldn't buy that T. Higgins jersey just yet if I'm a Patriots fan, because that was a message to ownership from Joe Burrow last night.
Joe Burrow doesn't just say something like that if he
right. So
and I still have the Chargers above the Patriots on T. Higgins bingo card or wish list or whatever too. So
now maybe if they're going to pay Higgins, maybe Burrow's done with his buddy from LSU, and that's another conversation to have. But realistically, I think we start talking about we're going to start reading the tea leaves of what the quarterbacks are saying. We may need to look at Philly for that next wide receiver. And I think we got a question about that too. Yeah, AJ Brown. We've heard he's unhappy. He'd be great with a quarterback like Drake May. He's going to get his share of the targets. There's nobody else here really to throw the ball to besides Hunter Henry. I'd be all in on AJ Brown. He doesn't even need a new contract. He might still want one, and you might still rework it to add years to it, but he's not even like one of these pre-agent guys. What was the original one again?
Abdul Carter.
So yeah, good player, runs kind of hot and cold. Stylistically, how does he fit? Like he's one of these just pin your ears back, get upfield and go. He's not a very disciplined rusher, doesn't offer a ton against the run. If you're okay drafting what might be a situational player in the top 10, yeah, there's a case for it. This team needs a pass rush, and he's a hell of a pass rusher, but I think he might end up being a situational player at the NFL level.
So that's my thing with him and a fit with New England. Like they need a plan for him because he's not the prototypical Bill Belichick pass rusher where he's going to set the edge, make plays in the run game. He's going to try to use his athleticism, slip blocks, make plays in the run game like that. But we did hear, all offseason, they wanted to be more aggressive. They bring in Drew Wilkins from Baltimore, who's doing some of that Mike McDonald stuff on defense. That is what fits Abdul Carter. Like move him around. If you just put him on the edge all game and say go, like that's a waste of his talent. You want to move this guy around. He can certainly rush with that athleticism, just so twitched up. He's going to dominate the pro day combine if he tests the athleticism. Let him rush over the center. He can stand up like we all see Micah Parsons, does the basketball stuff.
That's the name everybody's all excited about when they talk about Abdul Carter.
Rush through the A gap. You can even use him in coverage. He was an off-ball linebacker before he moved to the edge this year. Some of that Drew Wilkins, Mike McDonald, Raven stuff where you're running these sim pressures and you can drop him back and let him use that athleticism in coverage. Like I'm a big fan of the player, but they need to have a plan for him because again, like as you said, if you just stick him on the edge and you're like just play there, rush the quarterback, like he's going to get attacked at points in the run game. You saw the Ducks do that in the Big Ten championship game, and he's going to run past the quarterback at times with the athleticism as a pass rusher. So that's not their style. But if they are leaning into this kind of other stuff, then I think he would be a really good fit there. So we have to see who's coaching the defense next year. Are they going to make a change with DeMarcus Covington? But if they are going to lean into more of that, like, then I'm much more open to Abdul Carter, because I think the plan for him would fit better and fit his skill set and let him be more versatile and move all over the place.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's going to come. What's the defense going to look like next year?
Yep. And then, AJ Brown, as you said, that would be my dream target. I don't know. He was traded for a first and a fourth. So I'm guessing Philly would want that back if they can. I mean, New England's going to have a high second and 2/3 if you could make something happen there, or if you trade down and pick up another pick somewhere. But AJ Brown, I think that would be,
or you do what the Vikings,
a wide receiver target.
Or you do what the Vikings tried to do last year, which is you trade whatever it is, 34, 35, 36 for a pick in the 20s. And then that's the pick you trade for AJ Brown, right?
Yep. They could get creative. They have the flexibility to get creative. So
that's the one thing they have is flexibility. They have a ton of flexibility.
Right now, it's 4 top 80 picks the way the Falcons have been playing. I think that pick is like 76 or 77, high up there in the top of the 3rd round. So they will have the flexibility. Speaking at receiver, do you think, I'm guessing this is Travis Hunter, is he coming out as a wide receiver or a corner? Do you have a preference on that, or are you leaning one way or another?
What does the team with the first overall pick want him to play? I think that's what it comes down to.
What if they're picking a quarterback? It's the Raiders right now, so that's Shador.
Yeah.
Giants, maybe. I don't know if they talked themselves into Cam Ward or something, but
or Sam Darnold.
Yeah, there you go. But I don't, just if you're picking number one, say, do you have a preference with him? That's going to be the big thing. You have to figure that out. Like, talking about players you need a plan for if you draft them, that is Travis Hunter to a T. So do you have just a preference at either one of those spots?
Yeah, overall, I think he's a better corner. And if I'm advising him, I'm telling him to play corner. Like, yeah, you might get one $30 million contract as a receiver. You're going to get 3 $20 million contracts as a corner because you'll last longer. But from the Patriots' point of view, like, if they're taking him, I'd work him mainly at receiver. And then maybe in certain matchups, you use him as like a 3rd down matchup corner. But if the Patriots taking him, they should take him as a receiver. Yeah. Especially if you get an AJ Brown or T Higgins, you get that big X on the outside. Now you have that guy at the X, because Hunter's a Z slot. He's not an X. He's not playing on the outside of the NFL. So you have the free agent acquisition. That's your big outside guy. And then you have Hunter, Pop Douglas, Kendrick Bourne kind of rotating those other 2 positions. I don't know what you're doing about the line. Like, you got to really knock that out of the park in free agency, but that would be a hell of a wide receiver group.
Yeah. He was more impressive. I was watching some of him last week. He was more impressive at wide receiver than I thought going into that. So I could see him maybe.
He's gotten much better at wide receiver. Like, he was not this good of a wide receiver last year.
Definitely. He has definitely grown in that area. So maybe that is something, for a team like New England that needs the talent on offense, maybe that's something they more explore. But you need that plan if you do draft him. And if you do draft him as a wide receiver, any round 2 offensive tackles you like, Josh Simmons, Josh Connerly, who played pretty well against Abdul Carter for Oregon there. Does Ariante Ursary fall? Anyone else? I know you are not a fan of going offensive tackle in round 2 as we speak right now, but just what do you think of that group of players right now?
So on Simmons, I know a lot of Patriots fans are excited because they're all looking for, like, drafting a tackle's eating your vegetables, right? That's what that is. And they're all trying to figure out, how do we get the shiny new toy, still find a way to eat our vegetables? How do we get the wide receiver in round 1 and still address the tackle position? So everybody looks at Josh Simmons and says, well, here's a guy that would have been a 1st round pick, but we can get him in the 2nd round. Why are you getting him in the 2nd round? Remind me again, why are you getting him in the 2nd round? That's right, because he tore his ACL. And he might not be ready for the start of the season. And he might not be the same player. And that's a half measure. And that's what they've been doing at left tackle for almost a decade now, and they cannot continue to do it. They need an answer at the left tackle position. Well, you draft him, and then you assign, Garrett Bowles as a brick. No, you're signing Garrett Bowles as a start. So I'm not against taking Josh Simmons overall. He does not solve the answer at left tackle. If they draft Josh Simmons, to me, They still have a question left tackle going into the season. Connerly is an interesting one. So he was the number one recruit in that class with Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell, but he didn't start as a true freshman, which those two did. I'm still not entirely convinced Josh Connerly's coming out. He might stay in school because he will be a first-round pick next year. So unless he declared today and I missed it, I don't think he won't till after the playoff, I guess. Anyway, so we'll wait and see what happens with Josh Connerly. Josh Connerly, to me, if you're going to do it, that's the best option. If he stays on day 2. Now the problem is he going to stay on day 2 because he's going to have this run in the playoffs where Oregon's going to get. You got to remind me of the bracket again. I think I have it here.
They're going to get.
Here it is.
Ohio State, so it might be Jack Sawyer.
Right, so they're going to get Ohio State or Tennessee, which is 2 elite rushers.
James Pierce, for the Vols.
Probably get Texas or Clemson. Clemson, I forget his name. They have a really good edge rusher. Texas, I'm sure does. And then we'll see in the championship. Could be Georgia, could be Penn State. Abdul Carter again. He might not stay as a second-round pick for long, but when you're talking about him or a guy like Ursery, I wouldn't rule out the idea of we need to start thinking about it as their second pick and not the second round. If you want to go receiver at the top and you want to take a left tackle, you need to be willing to move up from that pick. You need to be willing to move up. Do you move up into the 20s and take Connerly or Ursery there? That's realistic. I don't know about round 2, but pick 2, I think those 2 guys are in play.
Yeah. Yeah, that playoff bracket right there, he has the chance to be one of those risers that we talk about and help himself. Because there's always going to be that bunch that have a really good college football playoff. You kind of saw it with Michael Penix last year. He dominates Texas in that game, and then he's top 10 pick. So you're going to see some of those risers like that, and he has a chance with those guys he's going to go against. Michael Williams, someone David says is better than Abdul. Maybe place him in the championship game if it's Georgia versus Oregon there. So he'll have a good gauntlet of rushers that can raise his draft status there. But we'll do a few more here before both of us lose our voice. But before we do that, we all love going to football games, hockey, basketball, any game live, and we make sure to use the Game Time app when we do so, and they have a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier because it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. If you are out in the desert this weekend and want to see Patriots at Cardinals, cheapest get-in at State Farm Stadium right now is $34, or you can use the Game Time Picks feature. Move right up corner of the end zone, low section, $79 with that Game Time Picks super deal. So add the Game Time for their lowest price guaranteed and other in-app features such as seat views, all and pricing, and of course Game Time Picks, which again makes it even easier to save more on your sports, concerts, comedy, theater, or any other tickets you are looking for. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, a few more. Let's try to find a couple. David is just going off on Ashton Genty in the chat right now. David loves Ashton Genty. You better hope he doesn't get a good run defense in the college football playoff and get shut down. And then you're going to get the Mountain West haters coming at you.
Look, good player, fun player. He just not doesn't make sense for the Patriots right now.
Definitely. Ryan has his whole offseason plan worked out. Adding T. Higgins, Travarius Ward, Will Campbell, Jack Sawyer, Trey Henderson, Major Taylor is 1,000% the goal. I don't know any of those free agents or draft targets. Do you like?
T. Higgins, sure. I'd prefer AJ Brown or DK Metcalf, but I'll take T. Higgins. They could use a veteran corner. I think that's a need. Will Campbell, Jack Sawyer, boom, you strengthen the trenches. I assume Trey Henderson is Travion Henderson. There's your running back. I can't say I'm familiar with Major Taylor. Is that supposed to be Mason Taylor?
Maybe. Is Trey Henderson?
Yeah, it looks up. Major Taylor is an American cyclist from the early 1900s.
Is Trey Henderson the running back or the Bengals pass rusher? Because it's Trey Hendrickson.
That's Trey Hendrickson.
Is he a free agent though?
Yeah, but he's there. That's in the draft part.
Oh, that's true.
Right, because
So
like you go free agent, draft, free agent,
draft. Okay.
bicyclist. Like for Ivor Johnson's and Arms Cycle Works. Oh, Worcester Cycle Manufacturing Company. He won gold at the 1899 World Championships in Montreal.
There you go. How about that?
Good for Major
I'm sure
Taylor.
we're gonna
we didn't even talk about Coy Cronk getting signed.
Oh, I know. Vikings practice squad, the legend Coy Cronk. I'm sure this new practice facility though is going to have some bikes or something. Major Taylor could just bike around the practice facility now.
He is apparently like he grew up in Worcester, or as a teenager he like started biking in Worcester. So
how about that?
Worcester legend.
Pats fan, maybe.
What?
Pats fan, maybe.
Probably not. He died 30 years before the Patriots were founded. But
okay.
Red Sox fan. Maybe. I guess the Bruins were technically around back then. If it is Mason Taylor, by the way, I do like Mason Taylor. It'd be an interesting pick for them. I do like Mason Taylor.
Another free agent, DJ Reed. I'm all for maybe paying a second corner, finding that guy in free agency. I like DJ Reed. He is another one of those smaller options, though. He does play bigger.
He had a rough game this week.
Yeah, he did against the Dolphins too. So, but I still like your guy Carlton Davis. I think that would be a good fit opposite Christian Gonzalez in free agency. But definitely, I like the idea, the thought process of paying a corner there this summer or spring free agency. Draft opposite of getting offensive tackle with the first pick and trading up for a wide receiver. Any worth trading up for? Emeka Uboka, Luther Burden. Emeka Uboka is going to be a amazing, like such a sturdy, solid pro, but Luther Burden probably too. But I don't know how many more of these kind of inside receivers the Patriots can afford to draft. Like they have an abundance of those two guys. Probably none are at the level of Emeka Uboka or Luther Burden, but it just kind of still fits the mold of the players they have on their roster right now.
So it's like you're trying to get that apex guy, and the apex guys are going earlier. You don't necessarily need. It'd be great if they could get a true franchise blue chip left tackle, but they don't even have the Pop Douglas equivalent of a tackle right now.
Yeah.
Right. So that's got to be the position if you're going wide receiver, it kind of has to be all or nothing.
I was hoping Uboka would come out last year and they could have used that Jalen Polk pick on Uboka. That would have been perfect.
That would have been
that was my dream last year, but he stayed, and obviously now probably can't afford that. So I was trying to find a question that I scrolled over. It was about the tight ends. He was talking Henry's getting old, Hooper's on a 1-year deal. Jaheim Bell is kind of this, versatile guy. Do we like any of the tight ends in the draft this year? It's a good class. We've talked about them a few times. Any of those guys, Colson Loveland and the Penn State guy whose name just escaped me. Tyler Warren, probably top of that class. Maybe like Colson Loveland, because the Michigan offense was such a mess because they didn't have a quarterback, slips to like the top of the second round and you could get him there. But any thoughts on those two tight ends or anyone else in that class that you're kind of eyeing?
Yeah, it's probably a little rich for them. If they're sitting there 34, they've added a receiver. They've added like a T. Higgins type. They draft Will Campbell. Was that?
Found the question, but go for it.
Okay. If they're sitting there at 34, they've added a T. Higgins type. They've drafted Will Campbell. Yeah, I wouldn't hate, Tyler Warren if he falls that far. I do think getting a contingency plan in place at tight end is important. One thing I think we've very clearly learned about Drake May this year is he likes throwing at tight ends. You want to keep talent at that position, and you're kind of in this spot where you let Austin Hooper walk. You draft this guy, he becomes your tight end 2 for a year or two. Tight ends generally take longer to develop than other positions. And then when Hunter Henry moves on, okay, now he's ready to step into that main role. But I mean, you look up and down this draft, and I think there's guys that, some are more projects than others, but playing behind Hunter Henry, there's an allowance for a project player there. You kind of have that flexibility. So, I look at Mason Taylor, we already talked about. Gunnar Helm, I saw somebody mention in the chat from Texas. Brittingstool from Clemson is a guy I like. Oronde Gadsden, more of a receiving tight end, not much of a blocker. Mitchell Evans from Notre Dame, that's a tight end college. John Michael Gillenborg probably is the best name of anybody. Obviously, Bryson Nesbitt, Drake May's former college tight end at UNC. Ton of options.
That's the move. That's the move, Bryson Nesbitt. I think it's if they nail free agency, then it opens the door to maybe that second pick if a Tyler Warren or Colson Loveland is there. Because again, if you could add some explosiveness at that spot, we know Drake May, as you said, loves it. Alex Van Pelt likes that position, as we saw in Cleveland. With a guy like David Njoku, if you could find the guy like that, that could really help this offense out. But that's again maybe one of these luxury picks where you got to be confident with everything else in free agency. And then kind of fill it in. But Warren and Loveland, great players. And as you listed through those guys, some good depth in this class. Two more here. Any chance they go linebacker for a first-round pick? Probably not first pick, but maybe you say that second pick, they could move up. Like I think they should find a linebacker in free agency or the draft. Like their middle of the field without Juwan Bentley has been really bad this year. So and when's the last time they put like valuable money or draft capital into the linebacker position? It's been like off ball linebacker. It's been a few years, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. And it's a good year for it. Jalen Walker's probably too rich for him, but Jihad Campbell, Harold Perkins, Danny Stutzman, Barrett Carter. There's a lot of, day two, you're gonna have a chance to add a playmaking linebacker in this draft.
I was watching some of Campbell from Bama. That guy.
I think he's still muted, Brian. Oh, there you go.
You got me now?
He gets
I was watching
football.
I was watching some of Campbell from Bama. 6'3", 245. So he's a big guy and he can move for a big guy. So if he slips into that second round, I would absolutely be all in on Campbell there at the linebacker position.
He will be in at least one of our. He'll be in at least one of our mock drafts. I feel confident about that.
He is a fun player. Like exactly what they like. He played Wisconsin, like they played Wisconsin, Bama, and he had a couple plays where he was like running the seam in cover two, just so like fluent and like looks like a natural. And you're like, that's the opposite of anything Patriots linebackers are doing this year. And he's a big guy, like he's the modern size athlete, kind of what maybe we were hoping Marte Mapu would be when we like wanted him to be a linebacker, that athletic, but he's bigger. He can play the run. So I'm a big fan of Campbell. But last one I got for you, December 10th. Joff wants to know, what is our dream scenario for the draft? Trade down from 3, stay and pick Travis Hunter, trade the pick for a player. What is Alex Barth's dream draft scenario? December 10th, completely irrelevant before the end of the season and the college football playoff in NFL free agency. But right now, what's your dream scenario?
I mean, yeah, we got to see what happens with free agency and all that. My dream scenario is Will Campbell is 33+ inch arms. That's your left tackle. And then you get to work on, and then you go find a pass rusher and a linebacker on day 2.
Okay. I think my dream, I'm going to trade down from 3. I'm going to stay in the top 10. I'll add Abdul Carter, and we're going to use those resources, whatever we get, and we're going to trade for AJ Brown, or we're going to trade for DK Metcalf, and we're going to be set. We'll figure out offensive tackle in free agency, or maybe one of those round 2 guys we're talking about. But Abdul Carter, you go get a veteran receiver. I think the veteran receiver is starting to be my favorite path here, with maybe T. Higgins not hitting the market. And we'll see with like a Tet McMillan or the draft isn't, there's no Malik Neighbors, there's no Marvin Harrison. So I like the veteran wide receiver path in this one. So if you got some resources, go get one of those guys and move down and still get a really good defensive player like Abdul Carter there. So we will wrap it up there. We will be back on Thursday, most likely. Hopefully, we both have our voices completely back. By then, we have another game. We are back in game previews. Patriots going out to the Arizona Cardinals. their first of their last 4 games. We'll be back. Patriots Press Pass. Make sure you subscribed and locked on so you know when we go live. You can also follow Barth on Twitter at RealAlexBarth. Head over to 985thsportshub.com for his written coverage over there. And you can follow me on Twitter at I am Brian Hines, and head over to patspulpit.com for our Patriots coverage there as well. So thanks everyone for tuning in with us tonight. Hope you had a wonderful bye week, and we will see you guys later this week.
Bye. All right, good stuff.